There we go, Mr. Romano. All fresh and comfortable now. The sunrise is beautiful this morning. Let me open these curtains for you. For 5 years she'd prayed over him, bathed him, spoken to a man who never answered. But when gunfire shattered the windows that night, and his eyes snapped open, alert, calculating, dangerous, Maria realized the most terrifying thing in that mansion wasn't the assassins breaking in. It was the man she thought she knew. Before we dive into this heart-pounding thriller, if you love stories about faith tested by fire, unlikely heroes, and discovering that redemption comes in the most unexpected forms, smash that like button, drop a comment telling me if you'd risk everything for someone who deceived you, and subscribe so you never miss these powerful stories. Now let's begin. Maria's alarm rang at 4:30 a.m., the same as it had been for 5 years. She silenced it with practiced ease, her knees protesting before her feet even touched the worn carpet of her small apartment. The crucifix on the wall caught the pre-dawn light, the first thing she saw every morning, the last thing she saw every night. She knelt beside her bed, hands clasped, lips moving in familiar prayer. Lord, grant me strength to serve with compassion. Grant me wisdom to see your light even in darkness. She didn't linger. There was work to do. By 5:45 a.m., she was on the bus, heading toward the wealthy hills where women like her came to serve, not to belong. Her weathered hands clutched a worn Bible in her lap, her modest dress and comfortable shoes marking her as someone the world looked past. She'd learned long ago that invisibility could be a blessing. The Romano estate emerged through the morning mist, like a fortress from another time. High walls, security cameras at every angle, gates that looked more prison than home. Inside those walls, people whispered, lived a ghost, a mafia kingpin who'd survived an assassination attempt but lost everything else. Inside, Dante Romano sat in his wheelchair facing the eastern windows, his silhouette motionless against the breaking dawn. The early light revealed a face carved by violence, scars tracing his jawline, his once powerful frame now seemingly broken. His hands rested lifelessly on the armrests, his gaze fixed and empty. To anyone watching, he was a shell, a prisoner in his own body. But his eyes, if anyone looked close enough, his eyes were measuring, calculating, counting. He'd heard the gate open, heard her careful footsteps on the marble floors. In 5 years she'd never been late, never been harsh, never treated him like the monster the streets still feared. Good morning, Mr. Romano. Maria's voice entered the room before she did, warm and steady like Sunday church bells. She set down her bag, made the sign of the cross, a habit she could never break, and approached him with the same gentle dignity she'd shown since day one. His face remained blank, unresponsive. She didn't mind. She never had. It's Thursday, which means physical therapy after your breakfast, she continued, moving to open the curtains wider. Golden sunlight flooded the room, and for just a moment, she caught something in his expression. A tension, a flicker. But when she looked directly at him, there was nothing. Just the paralyzed mafia boss. Just the job that paid her bills. Just another day in a life of quiet service. What Maria didn't know was that Dante Romano had been counting those days. Every single one. Counting down to the moment when his enemies would finally come. And when they did, everything she believed about him, about herself, would shatter like the windows that would soon rain glass across his bedroom floor. Their routine was sacred. Maria knew every detail by heart. How he took his coffee, black, lukewarm, never hot. How to position his limbs during therapy, gentle pressure, never forcing. The exact angle of his wheelchair by the window, facing east, always east, toward the sunrise. But routines were also where secrets hid. You know something, Mr. Romano? Maria said, while preparing his breakfast in the vast, echoing kitchen. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I still talk to you like you can hear me. Father Miguel says I'm blessed with faith. Says I see God's image even in broken vessels. She brought the tray to him, setting it on the side table with practiced care. Her hands, calloused from years of service, marked with small scars from her past, arranged everything with tenderness. But between you and me? Her voice dropped to a whisper, as if sharing a confession. I think you do hear me. I think you're in there somewhere, Mr. Romano. Just waiting. Though I can't imagine what you're waiting for. She smiled sadly, adjusting the collar of his shirt with maternal gentleness. My old sergeant used to say, everyone's fighting a war nobody else can see. I left that life behind. The guns, the violence, all of it. Found peace in serving others. Found God in the quiet moments. She paused, looking at his scarred face. I wonder what war you're fighting in there. What battles rage behind those silent eyes. Dante Romano's chest tightened imperceptibly. His jaw clenched for just a fraction of a second, too subtle for anyone to notice. If only she knew. If only she understood that her prayers hadn't fallen on deaf ears. That every word, every gentle touch, every moment of dignity she'd given him had been recorded, cherished, held close in the darkness of his deception. If only she knew that tonight, the war she couldn't see would finally break into the open. And Maria Santos, faithful, humble Maria, would discover that the Lord's protection doesn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looks like standing your ground when hell itself comes knocking at the door. The clock was ticking. The enemies were coming. And neither of them knew that the most dangerous night of their lives was only hours away. The routine was sacred. Maria knew every detail by heart, could perform it with her eyes closed if she had to. 5 years had worn the pattern into her bones, into her muscle memory, until caring for Dante Romano felt less like work and more like prayer. Every morning at 6:45, she would begin the bathing ritual. Fill the basin with warm water, not too hot, never too hot for skin that couldn't tell her if it burned. Add a drop of lavender oil, something gentle, something that treated him like a man, and not just a body. She'd learned that from her grandmother, who'd cared for Maria's grandfather after his stroke. Dignity, Mija, she'd said. Always dignity, even when they can't ask for it. Maria would wash his face first, the cloth moving gently over the scars that mapped his violent past. 3 across his left cheek. Knife wounds, she'd guessed. The puckered circle on his shoulder. Bullet. Definitely. His body was a testimony written in scar tissue, each mark a sermon on the life he'd lived before the assassination attempt that had supposedly stolen his mind. There we go, Mr. Romano, she'd murmur, her voice soft in the quiet room. All clean now, dignified. That's how God sees you, you know, not your scars, not your past. Just your soul. She never expected answers, hadn't heard his voice in 5 years. But she talked anyway, filling the silence with one-sided conversations that were part caregiving, part confession, part prayer. After bathing came physical therapy. She'd lift his arms, careful, gentle, move them through their ranges of motion to keep the muscles from completely atrophying. Bend his knees, rotate his ankles. The doctor said it was pointless, that he'd never walk again, never move on his own. But Maria did it anyway. Hope, she'd learned in the army, wasn't about probability. It was about possibility. I was a medic, you know, she told him one morning, while working his shoulder joint. In Fallujah, saw things that made me question if God was real, if he was good, if any of it meant anything. His face remained blank. It always did. I held boys, and that's what they were, Mr. Romano, just boys, while they died in the sand. 19, 20 years old. I'd tell them it would be okay, that help was coming, that they'd see their mothers again, and I'd feel their life leave their bodies while I lied to them. She paused, her hands stilling on his arm. That's when I stopped believing. Not in God. I always knew he existed. But in myself, in my goodness, in my right to live in peace, when so many had died in violence. She resumed the therapy, moving to his other arm. When I came home, I couldn't sleep, couldn't pray, couldn't feel anything, except guilt and rage, and this, emptiness. My sergeant told me everyone fights a war nobody else can see. But mine felt like it would never end. The morning sun streamed through the windows, painting golden squares on the floor. Then my grandmother told me something. She said, Maria, you think you lost your faith in that desert. But maybe you just lost your way to it. Maybe God's waiting for you to find him in service, in caring for those the world's forgotten. Maria smiled sadly, positioning his arm back on the wheelchair's armrest. So I became a caregiver, started with hospice patients, then long-term care. Eventually found my way here, to you. A mafia boss the world says is already dead, a monster the streets still whisper about. A man who, according to the newspapers, deserves whatever hell he's trapped in. She moved to kneel in front of his wheelchair, looking up at his scarred face. But you know what, Mr. Romano? I don't see a monster when I look at you. I see a man who's suffered, a man who's trapped, a man who, whether he can hear me or not, deserves dignity. Because everyone does. Even sinners, especially sinners. She stood, brushing off her knees. My grandmother used to say that's what makes us human, not our capacity for good, but our capacity to show grace to those who don't deserve it. To love the unlovable, to see God's image even in the most broken mirrors. By 8:30, the morning routine would be complete. Dante would be bathed, dressed in a clean shirt and slacks, positioned in his wheelchair facing the eastern windows. She'd read to him then, sometimes scripture, sometimes poetry, sometimes just the newspaper. Anything to fill the silence, to remind him, and herself, that he wasn't alone. One morning she read from the Gospel of John. Jesus wept. The shortest verse in the Bible, but it had always meant the most to her. You know why that verse matters? She asked him. Because it means God understands suffering. He doesn't just observe it from heaven. He feels it. He weeps. Even for people like us. People who've done things we can't take back. People who carry their sins like stones in their pockets. She closed the Bible, her fingers tracing its worn cover. I killed a man once, Mr. Romano. In the war. He was reaching for something. Could have been a weapon. Could have been a phone. I didn't wait to find out. I just pulled the trigger. And he died. Someone's son. Maybe someone's father. Gone because I chose my life over his. It was the first time she'd said it out loud in years. The army said it was justified. Rules of engagement. But late at night, when I'm alone in my apartment, I can still see his face, still hear the sound of. Her voice broke. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed, even though he couldn't see her cry. I tell myself I'm here to help you, to serve you. But maybe I'm here because taking care of someone who can't judge me, who can't condemn me, is the only way I can live with what I've done. Maybe caring for you is how I earn my peace. The room was silent, except for the soft hum of his medical equipment. Is that selfish, using your suffering for my redemption? No answer. There never was. But somehow, in the quiet that followed, Maria felt lighter, as if speaking her truth to this silent man had released something she'd been carrying too long. The Romano estate itself was a fortress, disguised as a home. Maria had learned its secrets over 5 years. The panic room hidden behind the library, the reinforced doors, the security cameras in every corner. Guards patrolled the perimeter 24/7, rotating in shifts she'd memorized without meaning to. This wasn't a house. It was a bunker. She'd asked Mr. Kim, Dante's second-in-command, about it once. Mr. Romano has enemies, he'd said simply. Even now, even paralyzed and helpless, even 5 years after the attempt on his life that should have killed him. The violence still circled this place like sharks around blood in the water. But inside these walls, Maria had created something different. A bubble of grace and a fortress of fear. She played soft music, hymns mostly, sometimes classical. She opened windows when the weather was nice. She talked about hope and redemption, and second chances to a man who supposedly couldn't hear any of it. Her life outside these walls was sparse. No family nearby. Her grandmother had passed 3 years ago, and her parents had died when she was young. No close friends, no romantic prospects. At 38, Maria Santos existed almost entirely within the walls of the Romano estate, caring for a man who couldn't care back. Some nights, when she stayed for the overnight shift, she'd sit in the chair beside his wheelchair after he'd been put to bed. The house would be quiet except for the sound of his breathing and the distant footsteps of the security guards. You know what's funny? She whispered to him one night. This job was supposed to be temporary. Just until I figured out what to do with my life. But 5 years later, and I don't know what I'd do without it. Without you. She laughed softly. Sadly. Pathetic, right? A grown woman whose whole world revolves around a man who doesn't even know she exists. My old army friends would say I'm hiding. Running from life instead of living it. She reached out, hesitating, then gently took his limp hand in hers. But they don't understand. Caring for you has healed me in ways I can't explain. Every day I choose to see you as human. I remember that I'm human too. Every time I give you dignity, I reclaim some of my own. You're not just my patient, Mr. Romano. You're my reminder that redemption is possible. That grace exists, even in the darkest places. His hand was warm in hers but completely still. So thank you, she whispered, for letting me care for you. For giving my life purpose. For being the broken mirror that somehow showed me God's reflection. She sat there in the darkness, holding the hand of a man who'd never hold hers back, and felt more at peace than she had in years. What Maria didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that in the darkness, Dante Romano's fingers had twitched. Just slightly. Just enough. What she didn't know was that he'd heard every word. Every prayer, every confession, every moment of grace she'd poured into what she thought was an empty vessel. What she didn't know was that the countdown had already begun. And tonight would be the night when everything she believed, everything she'd built in these 5 quiet years, would be tested by fire. 11:47 p.m. Maria was making her final rounds when the security panel in the hallway erupted in a cascade of red lights. She'd been humming softly. Another hymn, Amazing Grace, her mind already drifting toward the cot in the guest room where she'd sleep until dawn. Thursday overnight shifts were usually the quietest. Nothing ever happened on Thursdays. The electronic beeping shattered that peace like a hammer through glass. Maria's head snapped toward the monitor mounted on the wall. Her heart lurched. Perimeter breach. East wall. Then north. Then west. Red zones blooming across the security grid, like blood spreading through water. What? Her voice came out strangled, confused. She moved closer to the screen, her hands trembling as she cycled through the camera feeds. At first, she saw nothing. Just darkness. Just the familiar grounds lit by security lights. Then movement, shadows separating from shadows. Men, multiple men, moving with military precision through the estate's outer defenses. They were dressed in black tactical gear, faces covered, weapons raised. Professional. Coordinated. This wasn't random. This was planned. Maria's army training flickered to life beneath 5 years of rust. Count them. Assess the threat. Find an exit. She counted 8, no, 10, no, more emerging from the tree line. At least 15 armed men systematically approaching the mansion. Her hands fumbled for the phone on the security desk. She grabbed it, pressed it to her ear. Dead. No dial tone. Just hollow silence. No, no, no. She jabbed buttons frantically. Nothing. Communications were cut. She reached for her cell phone in her pocket. No signal. They were jamming everything. Through the monitor, she watched the guards at the gate collapse. Not sleeping. Collapsing. Suppressed weapon fire. She'd heard that sound enough times in Fallujah to recognize it, even through cameras with no audio. They were killing everyone. Oh God. Oh Jesus. The prayers spilled out automatically, her grandmother's voice in her head. When you're scared, Mija, you pray. You pray, and you move. Move. She had to move. Had to get to Mr. Romano. Had to get him to safety. The panic room. There was a panic room behind the library. She'd been shown it once, years ago. Reinforced steel. Independent communications. They could lock themselves in, call for help. If they could reach it, Maria ran. Her comfortable shoes slapped against marble floors, the sound echoing through the mansion like gunshots. Her breath came in ragged gasps. 5 years of peaceful routine had made her soft, made her forget what fear felt like, what adrenaline tasted like. She burst through Dante's bedroom door. He was exactly where she'd left him 30 minutes ago, in his wheelchair, facing the eastern windows. The room was dark, except for moonlight streaming through the glass, painting his silhouette in silver and shadow. Mr. Romano. She was already moving toward him, already reaching for the wheelchair handles. We have to move. There are men, armed men. They're coming, and I need to get you to the safe room. His eyes opened. Not the slow, unfocused drift of someone waking from sleep. Not the vacant stare she'd known for 5 years. His eyes snapped open, alert, calculating, focused directly on her, with an intensity that made her stumble backward. Maria. The word hit her like a physical blow. His voice, deep, clear, commanding, real. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her mind was static, and white noise, and the complete dissolution of everything she thought she knew. Get the emergency bag from my closet. Third panel on the left. Now. It was impossible. Medically impossible. 5 years of paralysis. 5 years of silence. 5 years of doctors and specialists, all saying the same thing. Locked-in syndrome. Minimal brain function. No hope of recovery. You. Her voice broke. You can speak. Downstairs. Glass exploded. Gunfire erupted. Not suppressed this time. Loud. Close. Real. Men shouting in Italian. Furniture crashing. Screams cut short. They were inside. Maria. Dante's voice cut through her shock like a blade. I need you to focus. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? You've been. The betrayal crashed over her in waves. 5 years. 5 years I've bathed you, dressed you, prayed over you. And you've been awake. You've been conscious. Third panel. Left side. Emergency bag. Get it, now. The command in his voice triggered something primal in her, the same thing that had made her follow orders in Fallujah when mortars were falling. Survival instinct overrode confusion, betrayal, hurt. Maria's legs moved before her brain gave permission. She ran to his closet, threw open the doors. Her hands found the third panel on the left wall. It looked like solid wood. She pressed, and it clicked open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, a heavy black duffel bag. She grabbed it, nearly dropped it. It was heavier than she expected, metallic sounds clanging inside, and dragged it back to him. Footsteps pounded up the main staircase, multiple sets. Getting closer. Good, Dante said. His hands that should have been useless, should have been limp, gripped the armrests of his wheelchair, and he pushed himself up. He stood. Fully, steadily, smoothly. Like a man who'd never been paralyzed at all. Like the last 5 years had been a lie written in flesh and sustained by perfect, patient deception. Maria's knees gave out. She caught herself on the edge of his bed, staring up at him with her mouth open, no sound coming out. Dante Romano stood at his full height, 6 feet of scarred muscle and coiled violence. He unzipped the duffel bag with practiced efficiency and pulled out a handgun. Checked the magazine. Chambered a round. His movements were fluid, professional, the movements of a man who'd handled weapons his entire life. I know you have questions, he said, his voice low and urgent. I know you feel betrayed. I know this is. The door exploded inward, not opened. Exploded. Someone had kicked it with enough force to splinter the frame. 3 men in tactical gear poured through, weapons raised. Everything happened in slow motion, and too fast all at once. Dante moved, not like someone who'd been in a wheelchair for 5 years. Like a predator who'd been waiting, coiled, for exactly this moment. He fired twice, controlled bursts, center mass, and 2 of the men dropped. The third one got a shot off. The bullet punched through the wall 6 inches from Maria's head. She felt the air displacement, felt splinters of drywall spray across her face. Her body reacted before her mind could catch up. Training from another life, from another version of herself, surged through her nervous system. She dropped flat, rolled behind the bed, her hands already reaching for what? She wasn't armed. She wasn't prepared. She was a caregiver in a dress, hiding behind furniture while the man she'd bathed this morning killed people with professional efficiency. Dante took down the third man with a single shot. Then silence, just heavy breathing, and the smell of cordite, and the 3 bodies cooling on his bedroom floor. Maria. His voice again, urgent but controlled. I need you to listen very carefully. We have maybe 60 seconds before more come. Can you handle a weapon? She stared at him from behind the bed. This stranger. This man who wore Dante Romano's face, but moved like someone completely different. Maria. Sharper now. Can you handle a weapon? Yes or no? Her mouth moved. Old instincts. Old training. Old words. Yes. I was a combat medic. I'm certified on. Good. He pulled another handgun from the bag, checked it, held it out to her. Glock 19, 15 rounds. Safety's off. Center mass. Controlled breathing, just like they taught you. Maria stood on shaking legs. Took the weapon. The weight of it in her hands was familiar and foreign, all at once. 5 years since she'd held a gun. 5 years since she'd been Specialist Santos, instead of Maria the caregiver. Her hands knew what to do even if her heart didn't. More footsteps. Coming down the hallway. Multiple sets. They had seconds. The panic room? She managed. Compromised. Dante was already moving, grabbing body armor from the bag. A rifle. They'll have the codes. This was planned. Then where? My study. Reinforced walls. Better sightlines. We hold there until... An explosion rocked the floor below them. The chandelier swayed. Dust rained from the ceiling. Until what? Maria demanded, her voice rising. Until they kill us? Until I've killed all of them. Dante looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his eyes, beyond calculation and violence. Something that might have been regret. I'm sorry, Maria. I never wanted you to see this. Never wanted you to be here tonight. But if we're going to survive, I need you to be what you were, before you became what I needed you to be. I don't understand. I need you to be a soldier. He chambered a round in his rifle. Can you do that? Can you be a soldier one more time? Downstairs, men were shouting, coordinating, regrouping. They'd be coming up the stairs in moments. Maria looked at the gun in her hands, looked at the dead men on the floor, looked at Dante Romano. This man she'd cared for, prayed over, confessed to, trusted, standing there like the violence he'd always been. She thought of her grandmother. Everyone deserves dignity, Mija, even sinners. She thought of the boy she'd killed in Fallujah, the one who still haunted her dreams. She thought of 5 years of peace, bought with one-sided conversations and prayers, to a man who'd been listening all along. I was a soldier before I was a saint, she heard herself say. The words felt like they came from someone else, from the Maria she'd buried 5 years ago. Let's survive this. Then you're gonna tell me everything. Dante nodded once. Deal. He moved toward the door. Maria followed, the Glock held in a proper 2-handed grip, her body remembering training her mind had tried to forget. Outside, footsteps thundered closer. The countdown was over. The pretending was done. And Maria Santos was about to remember exactly who she'd been before she'd learned to pray. They moved through the mansion like ghosts fleeing hell. Dante led, rifle up, every movement precise and controlled. Maria followed 3 steps behind, her Glock raised, her body falling into tactical formation like she'd never left the desert. The study was on the main floor, west wing. They had to cross 2 hallways and descend a grand staircase. All of it exposed, all of it potential kill zones. Through the walls they could hear men shouting, boots on marble, furniture being overturned. Dante paused at the top of the stairs, hand raised in a fist. Stop. Maria froze, her breath coming in controlled measures. He peered around the corner, then signaled, 2 fingers, pointing down. 2 hostiles below. He moved like water, flowing down the stairs in perfect silence. Maria watched him drop both men before they even registered his presence. No hesitation, no mercy. Just efficient, practiced violence. The bodies crumpled. Dante kept moving. Maria stepped over them, forcing herself not to look at their faces, not to think about who they were, who would mourn them. Soldier brain, not caregiver brain. There'd be time for guilt later, if there was a later. The study door was reinforced steel, disguised as mahogany. Dante punched in a code, 6 digits, his fingers moving faster than she could track, and it opened with a heavy click. They slipped inside. He slammed it shut behind them, engaged 3 separate locks. Sudden silence. The soundproofing cut off the chaos, like dropping underwater. Maria's ears rang in the quiet. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline dumping into her system with nowhere to go. She bent over, hands on knees, forcing herself to breathe. Dante moved to a panel on the wall, pressed his palm against it. A hidden compartment opened, revealing security monitors, communications equipment, more weapons. The room was a bunker, a last stand designed by someone who'd always known this day would come. "We're safe here," he said, his voice steady. "For now. Walls are reinforced concrete, doors steel core. They'll need explosives to breach, and that'll take time." Maria straightened, the gun still in her hand, and looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd been helpless this morning was now standing tall, checking weapons with the confidence of a lifelong soldier. "How long?" Her voice came out rough, dangerous. Dante didn't pretend not to understand. 4 years. The number hit her like a fist. 4. She couldn't finish. Couldn't process it. "I woke up about a year after the shooting. Took months to relearn how to move, how to speak. Had to do it all in secret, in the basement, when everyone thought I was sleeping. 4 years." Maria's voice rose. 4 years you let me. I bathed you. I dressed you. I prayed over you every single day. And you were listening? Yes. I told you things. Private things. About my past. About what I'd done. About..." Her voice cracked. "I trusted you. I thought you were safe because you couldn't judge me, couldn't condemn me, couldn't. I never judged you, Maria. You lied to me." The scream tore out of her. 5 years of one-sided conversations. 5 years of confessions, whispered to someone she thought couldn't hear. 5 years of being vulnerable with someone who'd been watching, listening, calculating behind closed eyes. An explosion rocked the mansion. The lights flickered. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Dante moved to the security monitors, his face illuminated by the screens. "They're breaching the east wing." Maria didn't move, didn't look at the screens, just stared at his back, this stranger wearing a familiar face. "Why?" she demanded. "Why would you? What possible reason?" "Because I was identifying traitors." His voice was flat, factual. "Someone in my organization tried to have me killed. Someone close. I needed to know who. Needed to watch. To listen. To see who thought I was vulnerable. So you used everyone. Used me. I protected you." He turned to face her. "I made sure you were hired through legitimate channels. Made sure no one in the organization knew your background. Kept you separate, safe, out of my background." Maria's blood ran cold. "What do you know about my background?" Dante's jaw tightened. On the monitors behind him, armed men moved through the mansion, executing wounded guards, searching rooms methodically. "I know you were Army. 54th Medical Company. I know you did 2 tours in Iraq. I know you received a commendation for valor and were honorably discharged after." He paused. "After an incident you never talk about." Maria's hands tightened on the Glock. "You investigated me. I investigate everyone who enters my home. I'm not everyone. I was your..." She couldn't even say it now. Caregiver felt like a joke. "I was supposed to be." Another explosion. Closer this time. The monitors showed the library, right next to the study, filling with smoke. Dante turned back to the screens, his fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're moving faster than I expected. Marco must have given them the full layout." "Marco, my former second. The one who planned this." His voice was cold. "The one who's been feeding information to the Corsini family for 3 years." On the monitors, Maria watched men in tactical gear move through rooms she'd cleaned, hallways she'd walked, spaces where she'd spent 5 years building a life that turned out to be a fiction. Then she saw the guards, Dante's men, being executed systematically, efficiently. Some tried to fight. Most died quickly. A few begged. She watched them die on grainy security footage, and something inside her cracked. These men had greeted her every morning, had learned her name, had treated her with respect even though she was just hired help. Now they were bleeding out on marble floors while she hid in a bunker with the man they'd died protecting. "We have to help them," she said. "They're already dead. Some are still." "Maria." Dante's voice was firm. "This is what war looks like. This is what my world looks like. And you can't save everyone." She knew that. God, she knew that. She'd learned it in Fallujah, Learned it every time she'd held pressure on a wound that bled too fast, every time she'd whispered lies about medevacs that wouldn't arrive in time. But knowing and accepting were different things. Her hands moved automatically, checking the Glock's magazine, counting rounds. 15. 1 in the chamber. 16. Total. She'd fired 0. Dante had taken down 5 men. That left at least 10 still active, probably more. You handle weapons like you know what you're doing, Dante observed. Maria didn't look at him, just kept checking the gun. Her movements professional, practiced. I told you. I was a medic. Medics don't move like you moved in the hallway. Don't clear corners like that. Don't use proper cover and advanced tactics. She finally met his eyes. I didn't say I was just a medic. Understanding flickered across his face. You were attached to a combat unit, 54th Medical, assigned to 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines. We didn't stay in the hospital, Mr. Romano. We went out with the patrols, into the streets, into the firefights. Someone had to patch them up when they got hit. So you've done this before. I've survived before. She chambered around. It was already chambered, but the motion was calming, familiar. I've killed before. Told myself it was defense. Told myself it was righteous. Told myself God would understand. Then I came home. And couldn't sleep, couldn't pray, couldn't look at myself in the mirror without seeing blood. On the monitors, more guards fell. The attackers were regrouping, organizing for a final push toward the study. That's why you became a caregiver, Dante said quietly. That's why I found God. Maria's voice was raw. Thought if I served, if I cared for the helpless, if I spent my life giving instead of taking, maybe I could earn back my... She stopped, couldn't finish. Your soul, Dante finished for her. Maria laughed. Bitter and broken. Funny, I've been trying to save yours for 5 years, and it turns out we're both damned. I never asked you to save me. I know. She looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since he'd stood. You were already planning to save yourself. Planning this. Planning to, what? Lure your enemies in? Kill them all? Yes. The honesty was almost shocking. And me? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Was I part of the plan? The faithful caregiver who'd make you look helpless? The perfect cover? No. Something flickered in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or guilt. You were never supposed to be here tonight. You were supposed to have the weekend off. I scheduled it months ago. But I switched with Angela. Maria remembered. She had a family emergency. I took her shift. I didn't know until this afternoon. By then, everything was already in motion. I couldn't stop it. An explosion, massive this time, blew out the library wall. The monitor showed smoke and fire. Showed men pouring through the breach. They're coming, Dante said. Maria turned to the weapons rack Dante had opened. Rifles, ammunition, body armor. A arsenal built by someone who'd always known peace was temporary. She reached for a tactical vest, started putting it on. Her hands remembered how. Tighten here, adjust there, make sure the plates sit center mass. Dante watched her. You said you left that life behind. I did. She loaded spare magazines into the vest pouches. But that life didn't leave me. It never does it? The things we've done, the people we've killed, they follow us, haunt us. We can pray, we can serve, we can try to become someone different. But in the end, we're still soldiers. Dante finished. Sinners, Maria corrected. They looked at each other across the study. 2 people who'd spent 5 years pretending to be something they weren't. 2 people who'd been hiding from their pasts in the same house, seeking redemption in opposite ways. I was a soldier before I was a saint, Maria said quietly. And tonight, I guess I'm a soldier again. You never stopped being one, Dante replied. You just changed who you were fighting for. Outside the door, footsteps approached. Multiple sets. Coordinated. Professional. Maria raised her weapon. Dante did the same. If we survive this, she started. We will. You're going to tell me everything. Every lie. Every deception. Every moment you were awake while I thought. Her voice broke. Everything. I promise. The footsteps stopped outside the door. In the security monitor, she could see them. 8 men, heavily armed, planting charges on the reinforced steel. Maria, Dante said softly. She looked at him. Thank you. For what? For 5 years of seeing me as human, even when I didn't deserve it. The charges beeped, armed. 30 seconds to detonation. Maria's finger found the trigger. Her breathing steadied. Old training, old instincts, old prayers for strength and steady hands. And God's mercy on her soul for what she was about to do. Everyone deserves dignity, she whispered. Even sinners, especially sinners. The explosives detonated. The door blew inward in a wave of fire and force. And Maria Santos remembered exactly what she'd been before she'd learned to pray for peace. The explosion turned the world white. Maria felt herself thrown backward, felt her body hit the desk, felt air leave her lungs in a violent rush. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine that drowned out everything else. Smoke filled the room, acrid and choking. Training took over. Stay low. Check yourself for wounds. Find cover. Return fire. She rolled behind the heavy oak desk as bullets punched through the smoke where she'd been standing. The wood was solid, old growth. It would hold for a few seconds at least. She couldn't hear the gunfire over the ringing in her ears, but she could see muzzle flashes, could see shadows moving through the haze. Dante was already firing back. 3-round bursts. Controlled, professional. 2 shadows dropped. Then 3. He moved like liquid violence, taking position behind a reinforced bookshelf, using the smoke as cover. Maria popped up, acquired a target, fired twice. Center mass. The shadow fell. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. 5 years away from combat, and her hands were steady, her breathing controlled, her mind clear. Muscle memory. Or maybe something deeper. Maybe you never really stopped being a soldier. Maybe you just pretended for a while. The smoke began to clear. 4 men down in the doorway. Movement in the hallway beyond. More coming. Always more coming. Dante ejected his magazine, loaded a fresh one. We can't hold here. Too many entry points. We need to fall back. To where? Maria shouted over the ringing in her ears. The wine cellar. Only one entrance. Better defensive position. That's 3 floors down. I know. More gunfire. Maria ducked as bullets shredded the desk above her head. She blind fired back, not aiming, just suppressing. Buying seconds. On 3, Dante called. East door. I'll cover. Maria didn't argue. Didn't question. Just nodded. 1. She checked her magazine. 10 rounds left. 2. She gathered her legs under her, ready to run. 3. Dante stood fully, laying down, suppressing fire in controlled bursts. Maria ran. Out the east door. Into the hallway, her feet slipping on marble slick with blood. Behind her, Dante's rifle barked steadily, rhythmically, covering her retreat like they'd trained together for years instead of minutes. She reached the stairwell, took position, aimed back down the hallway. Clear. Dante backed toward her, still firing. 3 more men went down. Then he was through the door, and they were running down the stairs together, taking them 2 at a time. 2nd floor, 1st floor, basement level. The wine cellar door was hidden behind a false wall in the kitchen. Dante reached it first, pulled it open. Stone steps descended into darkness. Go, he ordered. Maria hesitated. What about? Go. She went, down into the dark, her hands finding the walls, her feet finding each step by feel. Behind her, she heard Dante follow, heard him slam the door, heard multiple locks engage. Then silence. Just their ragged breathing in the pitch black. A light clicked on. Emergency lighting mounted on the walls, casting everything in red. The wine cellar was more than a cellar. It was another bunker. Reinforced walls, stocked supplies. A room, built by paranoia, and maintained by necessity. Maria slumped against the wall, checking herself for wounds. Her shoulder was bleeding. When had that happened? Just a graze, probably from flying debris. Nothing serious. Nothing that would kill her. Dante was checking the security feed, on a tablet mounted near the door. His face was grim in the red light. They're regrouping, he said. Marco's smart. He won't rush this. He'll take his time. Methodical. Could be hours before they find this entrance. Hours. They had hours trapped in a basement together. Maria started laughing. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all. 5 years of gentle routine shattered in minutes. Now trapped in a wine cellar with a man who'd been lying to her the entire time. Both of them covered in blood and cordite, and the weight of their shared sins. Something funny? Dante asked. Everything. She wiped her eyes. Blood on her hands smeared across her face. This morning I was giving you a bed bath. Now we're in a firefight. You were paralyzed. Now you're... She gestured at him. None of it makes sense. Dante set down the tablet, moved to a first aid kit on the wall. Let me see your shoulder. I can do it myself. Maria. She let him. Not because she needed help, but because she was suddenly so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of being strong. Tired of the weight of everything. He worked in silence, cleaning the grays with practiced efficiency. His hands were gentle. Surprisingly gentle for a man who'd just killed 7 people. 5 years ago, he said quietly. I was ambushed. Restaurant. In Little Italy. Family dinner. My nephew's birthday. They came through the doors with automatic weapons. Killed 12 people, in 40 seconds. My sister. Her husband. My nephew. He was 8 years old. Maria listened, not speaking. I took 4 bullets. 2 in the chest, 1 in the shoulder, 1 grazed my skull. They left me for dead. Expected the head wound to finish what the bullets started. He applied gauze to her shoulder, his movements mechanical. I woke up 3 days later in a hospital. Doctors said I was brain dead. Said I'd never wake up, but I could hear them. Could hear everything. Just couldn't move, couldn't speak. Couldn't tell them I was still in there. Locked in syndrome, Maria whispered. For 6 months. 6 months of hell. Feeling everything. Hearing everything. Unable to respond. They talked about pulling the plug. About letting me die with dignity. He secured the gauze with medical tape. Then one day, my finger twitched. Just slightly, but it was voluntary. I'd made it move. He stepped back, his work complete. After that, I practiced. Late at night, when the nurses weren't watching. Took months to relearn everything. How to move my hand, my arm, how to sit up, how to stand. All of it had to be secret because someone in your organization tried to kill you, Maria finished, and you needed them to think they'd succeeded. Exactly. Dante moved to one of the wine racks, pulled out a bottle, not wine, but water. He unscrewed the cap, took a long drink, then offered it to Maria. I had myself transferred here, to the estate. Hired a full medical staff. And watched, listened, recorded everything. Every conversation, every phone call, every visitor. Looking for the traitor. Maria drank deeply. The water was cold, clean, shocking, after the smoke and blood. And you found him, Marco. 2 years ago. But I couldn't move against him, not yet. He was too connected, too protected. I needed proof, needed to document everything. And I needed, he paused. I needed to lure all my enemies into one place, make them think I was helpless, make them confident enough to come for me. So you set a trap. Maria handed back the water bottle. Used yourself as bait. Yes. And everyone else was collateral damage. Dante's jaw tightened. The guards knew the risks. They were paid well. Chose this life. What about me? Maria's voice rose. Did I choose this? Did I choose to be collateral in your revenge plan? You were never supposed to be here tonight. The first real emotion broke through his calm. You were supposed to have the weekend off. I scheduled it months ago specifically so you'd be safe, so you'd be nowhere near. But I am here. She stood, her shoulders screaming in protest. I'm here because I traded shifts with Angela because she had a family emergency, and I had nothing, nowhere else to be because my entire life has become this. She gestured at the cellar, the mansion above them. This job, this routine, taking care of you. I know, you don't know. Tears burned her eyes, from rage or grief or exhaustion, she couldn't tell. I told you things, Dante, private things. About my past, about the people I killed. About my guilt and my faith and my desperate attempt to earn redemption, through serving someone I thought couldn't judge me. And all that time, you were listening, watching, using me as part of your. I never used you. Then what was I? What have I been for 5 years? Dante was quiet for a long moment. Overhead, footsteps moved through the mansion, searching, getting closer. You were the only person, he finally said, who treated me like I was human. Not a boss, not a weapon. Not a means to power or money or protection. Just human. Broken and helpless and worth caring for anyway. Maria stared at him. I heard every prayer you said over me. Every hymn you hummed. Every time you admitted your own sins and asked God to forgive mine. You didn't know I could hear, so you were honest in a way people aren't when they think they're being watched. He met her eyes. You showed me grace I didn't deserve. Gave me dignity when I'd built a life on taking it from others. And He stopped. Looked away. What? Maria demanded. I fell in love with you. The words hung in the red-lit cellar like smoke. You. Maria couldn't breathe. What? I'm sorry. I know it's not. I know after everything I've done, every lie I've told, I have no right to. He rubbed his face. But you wanted the truth. That's the truth. Somewhere in the last 4 years of listening to you, watching you care for me with a gentleness I'd never experienced, I fell in love with you. That's not love, Maria said. I don't even know what that is. Obsession? Stockholm Syndrome in reverse? Maybe. He smiled sadly. I've never been good at the distinction. Above them, something heavy crashed. The search was intensifying. We should review defensive positions, Dante said. All business again. They'll find this entrance eventually. We need to be ready. But Maria grabbed his arm, stopped him. No, we're not done. You don't get to confess that, and then move on like. She searched his face. Did you mean it? Or was that another manipulation? Another lie too? I have never lied about how I feel about you, Maria. Everything else, yes. But not that, never that. She wanted to hate him, wanted to rage at him, for the deception, the manipulation, for stealing 5 years of her life, under false pretenses. But looking at him now, really looking, she saw something she'd somehow missed. Or maybe something that had been there all along, hidden beneath the paralysis that wasn't real. Vulnerability, fear, the desperate hope of someone who'd been alone so long they'd forgotten what connection felt like. She'd seen that look in the mirror for 5 years. I don't forgive you, she said quietly. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You let me believe a lie. Let me pour my heart out to someone I thought was safe. And you violated that trust in the worst possible way. I know, but. She took a shaky breath. But if we survive this, if we make it through tonight, then maybe we can figure out what's real and what was pretend. Maybe we can find some truth in all the lies. And if we don't survive, Maria checked her Glock, counting rounds again. Still 10 left. Then I guess it doesn't matter. A crash upstairs. Closer now. They were in the kitchen. Dante moved to the tablet, checking the security feed. They're sweeping methodically. Another 10, maybe 15 minutes before they find the false wall. Then we have 15 minutes. Maria took position by the door, weapon raised. 15 minutes to figure out if we're going to hell together, or die trying to avoid it. For what it's worth, Dante said, loading fresh magazines. I'd choose hell with you over heaven alone. Despite everything, the violence, the betrayal, the absolute insanity of the last hour, Maria almost smiled. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Is it? It's also the most messed up. But yeah, they took defensive positions, weapons ready, waiting for the inevitable breach. Two people who'd spent years hiding from their pasts, now facing their futures together, in a red-lit cellar, while violence circled overhead. Maria, Dante said. Yeah? If we survive this, I'm going to spend the rest of my life earning your forgiveness. And if we don't, then I'll spend whatever comes after trying to deserve the grace you showed me. The false wall began to shake. They'd found it. Seconds now. Maria steadied her breathing, said a prayer, for strength, for courage, for God's mercy on two sinners who'd found each other in the dark. I was a soldier before I was a saint, she whispered. And I was a monster before I met you, Dante replied. The wall exploded inward. And together, they opened fire. They held the wine cellar for 23 minutes. 23 minutes of controlled chaos. Maria and Dante fighting back to back, their movements synchronizing without words, their fire coordinated like they'd trained together for years instead of hours. But eventually, numbers won. They always did. We're down to last magazines, Maria called over the gunfire. Her shoulder was bleeding again, her hands slick with blood. Hers or someone else's. She couldn't tell anymore. Dante dropped another attacker, his rifle clicking empty. He switched to his sidearm without missing a beat. There's a service corridor, behind the wine rack, goes to the main floor. Can we reach it? We don't have a choice. He laid down suppressing fire while Maria ran for the hidden door, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. She found the latch, pulled hard. The wine rack swung open, revealing a narrow stone passageway barely wide enough for one person. Go! Dante shouted. Maria went into darkness, her hands finding walls slick with moisture, and God knew what else. Behind her, Dante's footsteps, his breathing, the slam of the door cutting off the gunfire. They ran through the dark. Upstairs. Through passages. The service corridors were a maze. Servants' routes from a time when staff wasn't supposed to be seen. Maria's lungs burned. Her shoulders screamed. But she kept moving because stopping meant dying, and she wasn't ready to die yet. They emerged into the main hall. The grand staircase stretched above them, the chandelier, somehow still intact, casting fractured light across marble floors slick with blood. Bodies everywhere. Dante's guards. The attackers. A battlefield disguised as a mansion. The study, Dante said. Last defensive position. If we can reach it. Gunfire erupted from 3 directions at once. They ran, bullets chasing them, punching through walls, shattering what remained of the windows. Maria felt one pass so close to her head. She felt the air displacement, felt her hair move in its wake. The study door was still standing, still locked. Dante punched in the code with shaking hands, his first sign of fear she'd seen all night. The door opened. They fell through. He slammed it behind them, engaged the locks. The room was destroyed. The earlier breach had wrecked half of it. But the west wall was intact, and behind it, reinforced concrete. It would hold. For a while. Check the security feed, Maria gasped. reloading her last magazine. How many left? Dante moved to the intact monitor. His face went gray. What? 10. Maybe 12. He touched the screen. And Marco. He's here. In the mansion. Maria moved to look. The monitor showed the entrance hall. A man stood there, surveying the carnage with calm detachment. He was younger than Dante. Maybe 40, with sharp features and expensive clothes, somehow still immaculate, despite the violence around him. Marco De Luca, the former protege turned traitor. He's coming here, Dante said quietly. How do you know? Because this was always about me and him. The others were just tools. Means to an end. Dante checked his weapon. 3 rounds left. He wants to see my face when he finishes what he started 5 years ago. Maria's hands tightened on her Glock. 8 rounds. Between them, 11 bullets. Against at least 10 men. The math wasn't good. There's a way out, Dante said suddenly. Behind the bookshelf. Secret passage to the garage. You can make it. While they're focused on me, you can— No. Maria. No. She met his eyes. I don't forgive you. I don't trust you. But I don't abandon people either. Not my squad. Not my patients. And definitely not someone I've spent 5 years caring for. Even if it was all built on lies. You'll die. Then I die with dignity, doing what I believe is right, protecting someone who needs it. She smiled grimly. Besides, soldier brain and caregiver brain finally agree on something. That's gotta count for something. Footsteps approached the door, multiple sets. Unhurried. Confident, Dante and Maria took position behind overturned furniture. Last stand. No retreat. No surrender. For what it's worth, Dante said. You were the best thing that happened to me in this life, even if I didn't deserve you. You didn't, Maria agreed. But maybe that was the point. The door handle turned, locked. A pause. Then a voice. Smooth, cultured, familiar. Dante, I know you're in there. And I know you're awake. Have been for years, haven't you? Marco's voice carried through the steel. The paralysis was always a performance. Very convincing. You almost had me fooled. Dante's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. I'm coming in. We're going to talk. You, me, and whoever's in there with you. The nurse, I assume. Maria Santos, former army medic, 2 tours in Iraq. Impressive resume for a caregiver. A dark chuckle. You always did choose your people carefully. Explosives beeped. They were placing charges. 30 seconds, Maria estimated. Dante nodded. When they breach, aim for Marco first. He's the leader. Take him down, and the others might scatter. And if they don't, then we take as many as we can with us. Maria thought of her grandmother, of the cross on her apartment wall, of 5 years of prayers and hymns, and trying to earn redemption through service, of the boy she'd killed in Fallujah, who still visited her dreams. I'm sorry, she whispered to all of them, to God, to herself. The explosives detonated. The door blew inward, for the second time that night, and Maria's world narrowed to sights and triggers, and the mechanical rhythm of controlled breathing. 2 men through the breach. She dropped both. 4 more. Dante took 3. She got the 4th. Then silence, smoke clearing, and through it, Marco De Luca walked into the study like he was entering a restaurant, not a war zone. 6 men flanked him, weapons raised, spread out, no clear shot without exposing themselves to multiple lines of fire. They were surrounded, outgunned, out of options. Marco surveyed the room, his eyes landing on Dante. Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe? Or disappointment. There you are, he said softly, standing. Mobile. Alive. I'd hoped the reports were wrong, hoped you really were trapped in that useless body, unable to stop what was coming. But no, you were planning, watching, waiting for me. For you and everyone else who betrayed me, Dante replied. His gun was raised but steady, pointed at Marco's chest. Betrayed you. Marco's voice hardened. You betrayed yourself, Dante. Betrayed everything we built. Everything we stood for. We stood for blood money and violence. We stood for family. Marco's composure cracked. We protected our people. We had rules, honor, a code. And you, his voice broke. You were like a father to me. The only father I ever knew. You taught me everything. How to think, how to fight, how to survive in this world. And then you decided to throw it all away. I decided to stop killing innocent people, Dante said quietly. After you'd killed plenty, Marco shouted. After you'd built an empire on blood. You don't get to find a conscience after decades of sin, Dante. You don't get redemption. You get what you deserve. Maria watched the exchange, her weapon trained on the nearest guard. Her finger rested on the trigger. One wrong move, and everyone died. The restaurant, Dante said. 5 years ago. My sister. My nephew. That was you. That was necessary. Marco's face was stone now. You were planning to cooperate with the FBI. To dismantle everything we'd built. To betray everyone who'd ever trusted you. I couldn't let that happen. So you killed a child. An 8-year-old boy. Collateral damage. You taught me that term. Remember, sometimes innocents die in war, Marco. You can't save everyone. He smiled cruelly. I was just following your lessons. Maria felt sick. The man she'd cared for, prayed over, confessed to. He'd taught someone else how to rationalize murder. How to justify the unjustifiable. Marco's eyes shifted to her. And you, the faithful caregiver, did he tell you what he did? The families he destroyed? The children left orphaned because their fathers owed him money? Or threatened his territory? He took a step closer. You pray over a monster, Miss Santos. A monster who's trying to buy his way into heaven with your prayers. Maria's hands didn't waver. I pray over a man. What he was, what he did, that's between him and God. But what happens next is between you and me. Marco laughed, genuinely amused. The nurse wants to play hero? You think your little gun and your righteous faith will? I think, Maria interrupted quietly, that I've killed more men than you've probably met. I think I've seen war up close in ways that would make your blood money and gang violence look like playground fights. And I think, she shifted slightly, her aim centering on Marco's head, that you're underestimating me because I'm a woman who prays. That's a mistake. Marco's smile faded. She's not bluffing, Dante said. Combat medic, 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines, decorated for valor. She's killed more men in actual warfare than your entire crew combined. Then she'll die like a soldier, Marco said coldly. He raised his hand, signaling his men. Kill them both. Everything happened at once. Maria fired first, double tap, center mass on Marco. He dove sideways, her shots punching through the space where he'd been standing. Dante took down 2 guards with precise headshots. The remaining 4 opened fire. Maria felt bullets impact her vest, hard, brutal, like being hit by hammers. She kept firing, dropped 1 guard. 2. Her slide, locked back. Empty. She rolled, grabbing a fallen rifle, came up firing. Dante was wounded, blood streaming from his leg, but still fighting. Still moving, still killing with methodical precision. 3 guards left, then 2, then 1. The last one broke, ran for the door. Dante shot him in the back. Silence. Just ragged breathing, and the ringing in Maria's ears, and the smell of cordite and blood. Marco was wounded. Maria's first shot had caught his shoulder, but alive. He'd taken cover behind an overturned desk. His gun was trained on them. Stalemate. You can't win, Marco gasped. Blood spreading across his expensive shirt. Even if you kill me, there are others. The Corsini family, the Russians, everyone who wants you dead. This isn't over. It is for you, Dante said. He limped forward, his leg barely supporting his weight. Wait, Marco's voice changed. Desperate now. Wait, Dante, please. We can still. I'm sorry about your sister, about your nephew. I was angry, I was stupid. But we can fix this. We can rebuild. You and me, like the old days. Please. You're all the family I have left. Dante stopped. For a long moment he just looked at the man who'd been his protege, his chosen son, his betrayer. I know, he said softly. That's why this hurts. He pulled the trigger. Marco's body slumped. Blood pooled across expensive hardwood floors. The man who'd orchestrated 5 years of deception, who'd killed innocents, who'd tried to finish what he started. Gone. Dante lowered his weapon. He looked at his hands, shaking now, for the first time all night, and something in his face broke. He was 22 when I met him, he whispered. Living on the streets. I took him in, taught him everything, and I turned him into, his voice cracked. Into this. Maria moved to him, her body screaming with pain from the impacts on her vest. She wanted to comfort him, wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault. But it was. At least partially. The violence he'd taught, the life he'd built, it had produced this. Produced Marco. Produced this night of death and betrayal. We need to move, she said instead. More could be coming. And you're bleeding. Dante nodded numbly. The garage. We can still reach it. They limped together, through the destroyed mansion. Past bodies of guards who'd died protecting a man who'd been lying to everyone. Past attackers who'd died for Marco's revenge. Past the wreckage of 5 years of careful deception, blown apart in one violent night. Outside, sirens wailed. Finally. Help coming too late to save anyone. But maybe in time to save them. If they deserved saving at all. They almost made it. The garage was 50 feet away. Maria could see the reinforced door through the smoke, could imagine the vehicles beyond, could taste freedom like blood in her mouth. Dante limped beside her. His leg wound, leaving a trail of crimson across marble floors. Then shadows moved in the corridor ahead. More men. 4 of them. No, 5. Emerging from rooms they'd thought were clear. They'd been waiting. Marco's contingency. His final insurance policy. Behind us too, Dante said quietly. Maria turned. 3 more men, blocking their retreat. 8 total. And she had maybe 4 rounds left. Dante had 2, maybe 3. The math was impossible. They were trapped in the grand hallway. All exposed marble, and broken chandeliers, and nowhere to hide. The kind of kill zone that made her army instructors shake their heads. Never get caught in the open. Never let them flank you. Never. But they were already caught. Already flanked. Already out of options. Back to back, Dante said. Maria pressed her spine against his. She could feel his heartbeat through the contact. Rapid, but steady. Could feel him breathing, living, preparing to die fighting. It's been an honor, she said. The honor was mine. The men advanced from both sides. Slow, confident. They knew they'd won. Knew this was just cleanup. Maria said a prayer. Fast. Desperate. Lord, if this is my time, let it be quick. Let it mean something. And please, please let there be grace on the other side for 2 sinners who tried. The men raised their weapons. And Marco DeLuca stepped into the hallway. Maria's heart stopped. He was supposed to be dead. She'd seen Dante shoot him, seen him fall, seen the blood. But he was standing. Wounded. His shoulder destroyed. His face pale with blood loss, but standing. Supported by one of his men. His other hand held a gun that shook, but stayed raised. Did you really think, Marco gasped, blood bubbling on his lips, it would be that easy? That I wouldn't wear armor? That I'd come here without protection? Dante's body went rigid against hers. You were my father, Marco continued, each word costing him. My teacher. The man I loved more than anyone. And you chose them. He gestured wildly at the bodies, the destruction. Over me. Chose redemption over loyalty. Chose your guilt over your family. You killed my sister, Dante said. My nephew. You killed my blood. Because you forced me to, Marco screamed, then coughed. Blood splattered the floor. He was dying. The shot had hit something vital, despite the armor. He was dying, but he'd live long enough to finish this. Last chance, Marco said. Both of you. Drop your weapons. Face the wall. I'll make it quick. Painless. That's more than you deserve, but his voice cracked. I loved you once. I can give you that much. Maria's finger rested on the trigger. 4 rounds. 8 men. Plus Marco. Impossible. No, Dante said. Then you die slow. Marco nodded to his men. Take them. The men advanced. 6 feet away. 5. 4. Maria tensed. She'd fire until her gun clicked empty, then she'd fight with her hands, her teeth if she had to. She wouldn't go quiet. Wouldn't give them the satisfaction. 3 feet. Then Dante moved. He shoved Maria hard. So hard she stumbled, nearly fell, and launched himself at the closest attacker. No gun. Just his body, as a weapon. He tackled the man. Used him as a shield as the others fired. Run! Dante screamed at her. Maria, run! She didn't run. Couldn't run. Couldn't leave him. She fired instead. Dropped 2 men. 3. Her slide locked back. Empty. Dante was grappling with 2 attackers, using their own weapons against them. He broke one man's arm, took his gun, shot the other in the face. Pure violence. Pure survival instinct. The paralyzed man was gone completely. This was the Mafia kingpin, the enforcer, the devil of Little Italy. Maria grabbed a fallen rifle. No time to check the magazine. She just started firing. Controlled bursts, center mass. The way they'd taught her in basic training a lifetime ago. 4 men left. 3. 2. Then Marco's hand shot out, impossibly fast for someone so wounded. He grabbed Maria's hair, yanked her backward against his chest. She felt cold steel press against her throat. A knife. He had a knife. Drop it. Marco screamed at Dante. Drop the gun, or I open her throat right here. Dante froze. His weapon was raised, aimed at Marco's head. But Marco was behind Maria now, using her as a shield. The knife pressed harder. She felt it break skin, felt warm blood trickle down her neck. Your choice, old man, Marco gasped, blood running from his mouth now. Your revenge, or her life. What's it going to be? The last 2 attackers had their weapons trained on Dante. He was surrounded, wounded, exhausted. One wrong move and they'd cut him down. This is between us, Dante said. His voice was steady, calm. Let her go. She's not part of this. Never was. Let her go, and you can have me. I'll lower my weapon. You can finish what you started 5 years ago. Dante. No, Maria started. The knife pressed harder. Shut up. The men are talking. Dante's eyes met Maria's. For a moment, just one moment, everything else fell away. The violence, the betrayal, the lies. Just two people who'd found something real, in the midst of something completely broken. She saw what he was about to do. Saw it in his eyes. Saw the calculation, the decision, the acceptance. I'm sorry, he mouthed silently. Then he lowered his weapon, let it hang loose in his hand, offered himself up. Good, Marco breathed. Good. Now drop it. Kick it away. Dante did. The gun clattered across marble, left him defenseless. Now kneel. Let her go first. Kneel. Dante knelt. His wounded leg buckled, but he kept his balance, kept his eyes on Maria. Marco's men approached him, weapons raised, ready to execute. This was it, the end of Dante Romano. The man who tried to find redemption and failed. The monster who'd fallen in love with his caregiver and doomed them both. Maria felt the knife ease slightly at her throat. Marco's attention had shifted. He wanted to watch, wanted to see Dante die. It was a mistake. Maria drove her elbow backward, hard, precise, right into Marco's destroyed shoulder. He screamed. The knife moved away from her throat. Just for a second. Just enough. She dropped her weight, twisted, broke his grip. Her hand found the knife, redirected it away. They grappled. He was stronger, even wounded. But she was trained. She'd done this drill 100 times in combatives training. She got the knife, drove it upward, felt it connect. Marco's eyes went wide. Blood poured from his mouth. Shoot him, Marco gurgled to his men. But Dante already had. He'd rolled when Maria made her move, retrieved a fallen weapon, and fired in one fluid motion. The shot caught Marco in the head. Perfect placement. The kind of shot you only made when there was no room for error. When missing meant killing the person you loved. The bullet passed so close to Maria's head, she felt the heat of it. Felt her hair move. Felt death miss her by millimeters. Marco's body collapsed. The remaining two attackers stared. Their boss was dead. Their plan was dead. Their confidence evaporated. Run, Dante said quietly. Run now, or die where you stand. They ran, dropped their weapons, and fled into the smoke-filled mansion. Self-preservation winning over loyalty to a dead man. Silence. Just Maria and Dante and the bodies of everyone who'd tried to kill them. Distant sirens, getting closer now. Help finally arriving too late to help. Maria stood on shaking legs. Her throat was bleeding but not deep. Surface wound. She'd live. Dante collapsed, not wounded, just exhausted. Just human. He sat on the marble floor among the dead, and put his head in his hands. Maria walked to him. Each step hurt. Her shoulder, her ribs where the vest had caught bullets, her throat, everything hurt. She knelt beside him. You could have hit me, she said quietly. That shot. You could have missed Marco and hit me instead. Dante looked up. His eyes were red, tears cutting tracks through the blood and soot on his face. I would have died first, he said. If I'd missed, if I'd hit you, I would have put the next bullet in my own head. Because a world where I killed you isn't one I could live in. Maria touched his face. Gentle, the way she'd touched him for 5 years, when she thought he couldn't feel it. I still don't forgive you, she whispered. I know. I still don't trust you. I know. But you saved my life. And I saved yours. And maybe, she swallowed. Maybe that counts for something. Does it? I don't know. Ask me again when I'm not bleeding. Dante laughed. It was broken, and exhausted, and real. Deal. Police lights flashed through the shattered windows. Red and blue painting the carnage in colors that almost looked beautiful. Voices shouting. Footsteps. Authority, arriving to impose order on chaos. They're going to arrest me, Dante said. Everything I've done, everything Marco said was true. They'll lock me up for the rest of my life. If they don't execute me first. Maybe, Maria said. Or maybe they'll see a man who stopped his own criminal enterprise, who worked with the FBI, who used himself as bait to eliminate multiple crime families in one night. She smiled grimly. Depends on how good your lawyer is. And you, what happens to you? Maria looked at her hands, covered in blood, holding a weapon again. After 5 years of peace, she'd killed tonight, multiple times, broken every vow she'd made to leave that life behind. But she'd also protected, also fought for something she believed in, also proved that being a caregiver and a warrior weren't mutually exclusive. I don't know, she admitted. I thought I'd left the soldier behind. Thought I'd found peace and service. But tonight I was both. Soldier and saint. Killer and caregiver. Maybe. She looked at him. Maybe that's who I was all along. Maybe I don't have to choose. Police. Hands where we can see them. They raised their hands. Slowly. Carefully. Not making any sudden moves. Officers poured in. Weapons drawn. Shouting orders. They were separated. Put on the ground. Cuffed. Standard procedure for an active scene with multiple casualties. As they dragged Maria away, she looked back at Dante. He was on his knees again, bleeding, broken, alive. Their eyes met across the corpse-strewn hallway. "Thank you," he mouthed. Maria didn't respond. Didn't know what to say. Didn't know if gratitude was possible between them after everything. But she didn't look away. Didn't abandon him even as they pulled her toward the door. Held his gaze until they rounded a corner and he disappeared from view. Outside, the dawn was breaking. Beautiful, clean, innocent of the violence that had happened beneath its light. Maria breathed the cool morning air, still alive, still fighting, still searching for something she wasn't sure existed. Redemption through violence, grace through survival, faith tested by fire. She'd prayed for a miracle for 5 years. Tonight, God had answered. She just wasn't sure if she liked what he'd said. Dawn broke over the Romano estate like a benediction. Golden light spilled across shattered windows, touched blood-stained marble with something almost holy. The kind of morning that made you believe in second chances, even when surrounded by proof of violence. They'd been separated for 2 hours, processed, questioned. Maria had given her statement to a detective, who looked at her like she was either a hero or a liar, maybe both. Combat medic caught in a siege, self-defense, textbook responses drilled into her by lawyers who'd arrived faster than she expected. Now she sat in what used to be Dante's study, the morning sun streaming through holes in the walls. Paramedics had bandaged her throat, her shoulder, checked her for concussion. She'd refused transport, refused to leave until she knew. Federal agents moved through the mansion, like ants through a corpse, documenting, photographing, collecting evidence of a night when multiple criminal enterprises had tried to kill one man and ended up destroying each other instead. They brought Dante to her, just after sunrise. He limped in, supported by 2 agents, his leg properly bandaged now. They sat him in a chair across from her, the only furniture that hadn't been destroyed. His face was cleaned of blood, but the exhaustion remained. The weight of everything he'd done, everyone he'd killed, everyone who'd died because of him. The agents left, gave them space, or maybe wanted them in the same room to see if their stories matched. Maria didn't care anymore. "How's your shoulder?" Dante asked. His voice was rough from smoke and screaming. "Hurts." Maria touched the bandage at her throat. "This too. But alive." Good. Silence. The comfortable kind they'd shared for 5 years. Except now it was weighted with truth, instead of lies. Maria found the first aid kit one of the paramedics had left. Opened it. Pulled out fresh gauze, antiseptic, supplies for the wounds the EMTs had missed or hadn't had time to properly treat. "Let me see your leg." Dante hesitated. "The paramedics already." "Let me see it." He extended his leg. She knelt beside him, the same position she'd been in thousands of times over 5 years. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking the bandage, ensuring it was secure, looking for signs of infection or complications. Old habits, caregiver habits. Even after everything, her first instinct was to care for him. "The FBI came to see me," Dante said quietly while she worked. 3 months ago. Offered me a deal, full immunity, witness protection, new identity. In exchange for everything I knew about the 5 families, the Corsini operation, the Russians. Maria's hands paused. "And you took it." "I took it, but I had conditions. I wanted to finish my own cleanup first. Wanted to identify everyone who'd betrayed me, everyone who was still loyal, everyone who'd come for me if they knew I was cooperating. So you leaked your location." Understanding dawned cold and clear. "You let them know you were here. Vulnerable. Made yourself bait." "Yes. And the attack tonight was exactly what I wanted. Every enemy I had, coming to one place. Making it easy for the FBI to document everything. Arrest the survivors. Dismantle multiple organizations in one night." He met her eyes. "It was the only way to end this. The only way to make sure when I disappeared, they wouldn't keep looking." Maria stood. Walked to the window. Outside, body bags were being loaded into vans. So many. Guards. Attackers. Marco's corpse. All of them dead. Because Dante Romano had decided to burn down his kingdom with himself inside it. "You used them," she said. "Used your own men. Let them die protecting you when you knew this was coming. They were criminals, Maria. Killers. They'd chosen this life. Knew the risks. They were human beings. She turned to face him. With families. With people who'll mourn them. And you sacrificed them like chess pieces. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. I did. And me? Her voice cracked. What was I? Another chess piece? Another part of your plan? No. He stood, wincing as weight hit his injured leg. You were never part of the plan. I scheduled you for the weekend off. Confirmed it with the service 3 times. You weren't supposed to be here. But I was here. Because I traded shifts. Because this job, this house, taking care of you, it was my whole life. And you knew that. You knew I had nowhere else to be, nothing else to do. You knew I'd probably be here anyway. I didn't know. You knew. She was crying now. Angry tears that had been building for hours. You knew me better than I knew myself, because you spent 4 years watching me, listening to me, learning every detail of my life while I thought I was alone. You knew exactly how isolated I was, how devoted, how likely I was to be here when you needed someone to be collateral damage. Dante's face crumpled. You're right. I knew. And his voice broke. I told myself you'd be safe, that the schedule would hold, that you'd be far away when everything went to hell. But deep down, some part of me knew you'd probably be here. And I let it happen anyway because I'm a selfish bastard who wanted. He stopped. Couldn't finish. Wanted what? Maria demanded. Wanted you to see me. He met her eyes. The real me. Not the helpless patient. Not the paralyzed victim. But the man I actually am. Violent. Dangerous. Irredeemable. I wanted you to see that and, he laughed bitterly. And I don't even know what I hoped would happen. That you'd understand. That you'd forgive me. That you'd somehow still what? Still see me as human. The words hung between them, like smoke. Outside, federal agents were briefing local police, establishing jurisdiction, coordinating the investigation of what would be called the Romano massacre for years to come. The FBI wants me in protective custody, Dante said. New name, new location, new life. They'll erase Dante Romano completely. I'll testify, help them close cases, and then disappear. Become someone else. Someone with no past, no sins. No, he looked at her. No connections to anyone I used to know. So this is goodbye. This is goodbye. He limped toward her, stopped a few feet away. You should go back to your life, Maria. Your apartment, your peace, your faith. You earned it. You survived something you should never have been part of. And his voice roughened. I'm so sorry I shattered your world. So sorry I took 5 years of your life. So sorry I made you care for a monster, and then forced you to watch him become one. Maria looked at him, really looked. At the scars she'd touched 1,000 times. At the hands that had killed so efficiently tonight but had trembled when they first held hers. At the eyes that had watched her for years with a love he'd had no right to feel. 5 years, she said quietly. 5 years I prayed for you to wake up, prayed for a miracle. Prayed for God to breathe life back into what I thought was an empty shell. I know. And he did. Just not the way I expected. Not gentle, not peaceful, not... She swallowed. Not clean. No, maybe that's the real miracle. She moved closer. Not that you woke up, but that when you did, when I saw who you really were, violent, deceptive, dangerous, I didn't run. I fought beside you, protected you. Chose to stay even when I had every reason to go. Why? The word came out broken. Why would you do that? After everything I did, everything you learned. Because for 5 years, you were helpless, and I saw your soul. She reached out, touched his scarred face like she had 1,000 times before. And these last hours, you were deadly, and I saw your heart. I know who you are, Dante Romano. Both versions. All of it. The monster, and the man. The killer and the... She stopped. And the what? And the person who fell in love with someone who prayed over him, who heard every confession, every hymn, every desperate attempt to earn redemption, and fell in love anyway. She smiled through her tears. You are not irredeemable. You're just human. Broken, and violent, and trying to be better. Like me. Like everyone who's ever done something they can't take back. Dante's eyes filled. How can you after everything? How can you still? Because that's what grace is. Maria's voice was steady now. Clear. Not forgiving the forgivable. That's easy. Grace is looking at someone who doesn't deserve it. Who's done terrible things. Who's hurt you and lied to you and endangered you. And choosing to see them anyway. Choosing to stand with them anyway. Choosing to believe they can be more than their worst moment. I don't deserve that. Nobody does. That's the point. Outside, a federal agent called something. Time was running out. They'd be separated soon, taken to different locations, different lives. Maria extended her hand. No more lies, no more hiding. We face the truth together. Or, not at all. Dante stared at her hand like it was salvation and damnation both. You're asking to come with me? Into witness protection? Into a life of... I'm asking us to start over. New identities, new location, new life. But this time with truth. With honesty. With both of us being who we actually are, instead of pretending. She kept her hand extended. I was a soldier, and a caregiver, and a woman, trying to pray away her guilt. You were a mafia boss, trying to dismantle everything you'd built. Maybe together, we can figure out who we're supposed to become next. The FBI won't allow. The FBI will allow whatever keeps you cooperative. And if having me there helps you adjust to your new life, helps you testify, helps you, she smiled, then they'll allow it. Besides, I'm a trained combat medic with a spotless record. I'm an asset. You're so much more than that. I know. She wiggled her fingers. Now take my hand, Dante. Choose truth. Choose hope. Choose the possibility that two broken people might be able to build something whole together. He took her hand, his fingers wrapped around hers, warm, alive, real, not limp, not lifeless, not pretending. Just him, holding on to her, like she was the only thing keeping him standing. Maybe she was. Together, he said. Together, she agreed. She helped him stand, really stand, with his full weight on his injured leg, no pretending, no performance. Just a man, learning to walk again, in more ways than one. They moved toward the door together, slowly, both wounded, both exhausted, both facing an uncertain future, in a world that wouldn't know their real names, wouldn't know their real stories, wouldn't know that a caregiver and a mafia boss had found something sacred in the midst of violence. Federal agents met them at the door, separating them. Just for processing. Just for the logistics of making two people disappear. We'll be in contact within 48 hours, the lead agent said. New identities, new location, full briefing. Miss Santos, if you're serious about this. I am, Maria said. Then you'll need to sign documents. Make arrangements. You understand you can never contact anyone from your old life again. Never return to. I understand. Maria looked at Dante being led away by other agents. My old life was over the moment I traded shifts last Thursday. This is just making it official. The agent nodded. Respected her choice even if he didn't understand it. As they led Maria out of the mansion, she looked back one last time. At the study, where she'd nearly died. At the hallways where she'd walked for 5 years, talking to a man she thought couldn't hear. At the bedroom where she'd bathed him, prayed over him, confessed to him. 5 years of lies. 1 night of truth. And somehow, impossibly, a future emerging from the wreckage. Outside, the morning was brilliant, clear, beautiful in the way only mornings after violence can be, when you're grateful to see the sun at all. Maria breathed deeply. Still alive, still fighting, still believing in redemption even after everything. A black SUV waited to take her to processing. She climbed in, felt the door close, felt the engine start. As they drove away from the Romano estate, Maria closed her eyes and said a prayer. Not asking for forgiveness, not begging for peace, just thanking God for the strange and terrible ways he answered prayers. She'd asked for a miracle for 5 years. She'd asked for Dante Romano to wake up, and God had answered, not gently, not peacefully, not with the kind of redemption that looked like church on Sunday, and hymns in the evening, but with fire, with truth, with the brutal honesty that sometimes the person you're meant to save is the one who saves you back. Maria opened her eyes, looked at her hands, scarred now, bloodstained even after washing. Hands that had held weapons and bandages both. Hands that had killed and healed in the same night. I was a soldier before I was a saint, she whispered to herself. To God, to whoever was listening. And maybe I was always meant to be both. The SUV merged onto the highway, heading toward a future she couldn't see. Toward a new name, a new life, a new version of herself built on truth instead of hiding. And somewhere in another SUV, heading in another direction, Dante Romano, who would soon not be Dante Romano anymore, was making the same journey, toward the same unknown, toward the same impossible hope. The two people who'd spent years pretending could finally be real. That grace was possible even for monsters. That redemption didn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looked like standing your ground when darkness came. Sometimes it looked like fighting beside someone you barely knew but somehow understood completely. Sometimes it looked like choosing truth over comfort, together over alone, hope over despair. Maria leaned her head against the window, watched the city pass by, watched her old life disappear in the rearview mirror, and smiled, because for the first time in 5 years, Maybe the first time since Fallujah, she wasn't running from who she was. She was walking toward who she could become. Soldier and saint, caregiver and warrior. Woman of faith who'd learned that sometimes God's protection doesn't look like peace. Sometimes it looks like fire. And Maria Santos, whoever she would become next, was finally ready to walk through it. Together with the man she'd saved, who'd saved her right back.